Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Imo, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Imo, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Imo, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Imo, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jai Guru Haribo, Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Gopinjana Valava Girivarira Jaya Gopinjana Valava Girivarira Yashodanananda Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanananda Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihare Jaya Gopinjana Valava Girivaradhare Jaya Gopinjana Valava Girivaradhare Yashodanananda Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanananda Brajajana Ranjana Yadira Vanachare Yamunadira Vanachare Radha Madhava Kunjavihare Jaya Gopinjana Valava Girivaridhare Yashodanananda Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanananda Brajajana Ranjana Yamunadira Vanachare Yamunadira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihare Jaya Gopinjana Valava Girivaridhare Jaya Gopinjana Valava Shodhanananda Braja Janarandana Ayashodhanananda Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Yamuna Tira Vanachare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajagacharya Astothara Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanara Vrinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Nityalila Pravista Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Foundercharya, Savior of the whole world, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Nityalila Pravista Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Rastottara Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Brahmacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Si Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Garadhar Srivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhama Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai. Sri Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai. Sri Damayapur Dhamma Ki Jai. Sri Navandvip Dhamma Ki Jai. Neelachala Jagannathapuri Dhamma Ki Jai. Ayodhya Dhamma Ki Jai. Dwaraka Dhamma Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sri Radha Shama Sundara Ki Jai. Sri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Balade Srimati Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Narasingha Dev Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. Samavera Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Shri Gaura Premnandi. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Haribo Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. And today we are treating text 6. Ajo P San Avyayatma. Ajo P San Avyayatma. Bhutanam Ishvaro P San. Bhutanam Ishvaro P San. Prakritim Swam adhishtaya prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi san ayat ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi san avyatma yatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Please chant. Sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanami sharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam isharopi sham prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Ladies, any Mataji wants to read? Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam isharopi san prakritim swamadhishnaya Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Ajopi Sanavyayatma. Bhutanam Isharopi San. Prakritim Swamadhishnaya. Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Word for word translation. Ajaha, unborn. Api, although. Son, being so. Avyaya, without deterioration. Atma, body. Bhutanam, of all those who are born. Ishwaraha, the Supreme Lord. Api, although. Son, being so. Prakritim, in the transcendental form. Swam, of myself. Adhishtaya, being so situated. Shambhavami, I do incarnate. Atma Mayaya, by my internal energy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Lahisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates. And although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Please repeat responsively. Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Purport. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, he remembers everything of his many, many past births. Whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. If someone is asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at the same time one day before. And yet, men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains his prakriti or his form. Prakriti means nature, as well as swarup or one's own form. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as the common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever he appears, he does so in the same original body by his internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in this material world in his original eternal form with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is the law of the universe, it still appears that he takes birth. He takes his birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that the Lord grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home, or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us. Although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future, neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, his appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us, and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always in its fixed position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful knowledge by his internal potency, and he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet he still appears to take his birth in the multi-manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking his birth, he is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayan with 4 hands, and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's form to be. The word Maya or Atma Maya refers to the Lord's causeless mercy according to the Vishwa Kosha dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and the self, or between his quality and body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. Omagyana temeridasya gyanan gyanashalakaya chakshuramli tam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swaminiti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashritatmane Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirthariti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvese Sasunyavadi Pasachade Satarini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Preman Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gaura Twize Namaha Nityanando Vatutendur Vasuda Pranavalabhaha Janavir Jivita Patir Krishna Prema Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Srimam Sachirananda Purvajaha Bhavum Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gaura Kale Varaha Advaitam Harinadvaitaracharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaktavataram Itam Shanadvaita Acharya Shraye Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabaya, Nama Pankajamaline, Nama Pankajanitraya, Namaste Pankajagraye. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pango Mama Mandirgatima Sarvaswa Padambujo Radha Mandana Mohano Divyat Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumanda Srimat Radnagara Simhastan Stam Srila Govinda Devo Pristhyani Bisivya Manos Smarami Shrimam Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivatata Tastita Karasan Venu Swanai Gopi Gopinata Sri Estunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavanishwari Brishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ajo Pisan Avyayatma Bhutanam Isharo Pisham Prakritim Swam Adishtaya Sambhavami Adma Mayaya Although I am unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Bukam karoti vachalam pangum lagayete grim yat kre patamahan vande Shri Guru Dinan Taranam Paramanam Maravam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakram Vyaptaina Characharam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to this Sunday lecture, Sunday discussion from the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita simply means the song of the Supreme, the song of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan means the Supreme Lord, and Gita means a song. So 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna appeared in this world, and he spoke this Bhagavad Gita. And even before 5,000 years ago, millions of years ago, roughly speaking, 120,400,000 years ago, Lord Krishna went to the sun planet and spoke this Bhagavad Gita to Vaivashata, the sun god. And Krishna remembered everything clearly. When Krishna informed Arjuna that he spoke this knowledge to the sun god millions and millions of years ago, Arjuna was bewildered. Arjuna was thinking, you are my age mate. Me and you were born around the same time. How is it that you went to the sun god and spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god millions of years ago? Arjuna was wondering, and I'm sure all of us would have wondered if Krishna had come to us and said, I spoke to the sun god millions of years ago. So Krishna explained to Arjuna that, my dear Arjuna, many, many births you and I have taken, but I can remember them all, but you cannot. So this verse is actually bringing out the difference between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna is a living entity, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. All of us are in a position of Arjuna. All of us are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our bodies may be different. Somebody may have a male body, somebody may have a female body. Somebody may have a black body, somebody may have a white body. Somebody may have a tall body, somebody may have a short body. But essentially speaking, these are just dresses. And these dresses will change. Actually, they have already changed. Because this is not the first dress we are wearing. Even in this life, we are changing dress. According to science, Every 7 years, all the cells in our body change. Every 7 years. New cells are formed and all the old cells are gone. That means if somebody is 40 years old, he has changed his body twice. And if somebody is 21 years old, he has changed his body 3 times. If somebody is 70 years old, he has changed his body 10 times. So in this life, we are already changing our bodies every 7 years. But because it is so gradual, and because it still looks the same, so to speak, we think no change is taking place. But there is a drastic change at the time of death. When death finally strikes, this body becomes useless. And therefore, it is abandoned. And then, based on our activities, based on our actions in this life, a new body is given to us in a new location from new parents, probably on a different planet. And as soon as that happens, we forget of our previous body. We forget of our previous life. That is the difference between the living entity and Krishna. So in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada has listed a number of points highlighting the difference between the Lord and the living entities. So first and foremost, he says the Lord remembers everything about his birth. Just as I was saying, Krishna appeared millions of years ago to speak Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. He did not forget. Even though Arjuna was with him, but Arjuna forgot. Arjuna and Krishna, they are very intimate friends. Narayan Rishi, they move together. They are never separated. Even as we are speaking here, Krishna and Arjuna are present on this planet. If you go to the Himalayas, Badrinath, the topmost part of the Himalayas, which is unapproachable because it's all full of ice, nobody can live there. But Lord Krishna, in the form of Narayan, and Arjuna, in the form of Narayan Rishi, they are there. They are performing severe austerities for the benefit of all living entities in this world. So they are always together. They are intimate friends. But even then, Arjuna did not remember how he accompanied Krishna to the sun planet, and Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. He cannot remember. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he remembers everything about his births. He remembers everything about his pastimes. He remembers every detail of his activities. In previous births, in previous millenniums, in previous creations. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His body never changes. His intelligence never changes. For us, our body is changing. And our intelligence is becoming weaker and weaker by the day. The influence of time bears on everybody. Sarva Kala Krite Manye. Everyone is under the influence of time. Sarva Kala Krite Manye. Sarva Kala. Everyone. Sarva is under the influence of time. He said, time waits for no man. Time is so powerful that nobody can escape the influence of time. But Krishna is not affected by time. Krishna is not under the influence of time because time is Krishna's energy. The energetic and the energy. The energy is subservient to the energetic. Krishna is the energetic and time is his energy. Therefore, time cannot affect Krishna. Time cannot influence Krishna. Therefore, Prabhupada is mentioning that at the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna was almost 90 years old. But if you see the personality that is driving the chariot of Arjuna, he's not an old man with gray hair and great beard. No, we have never seen Krishna in that form. Krishna is always Navana Yovanam Cha. He's always a youthful personality. He's always youthful. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya, he told Raghupati Upadhyaya in a conversation, Shamam evam paro rasaha, Shamam evam paro rupam, Puri madu puri varaha, Vaya kaishorikam dhyayam, Adya eva. That the Kaishorya form, the youthful form of Krishna, is his eternal form, is the supreme form. And that form is the original form. Samya Vapu. When Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra wanted to see how Krishna is managing the whole universe, Arjuna did not want to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. He was having some feelings towards his grandfather Bhishma Dev and his teacher Dronacharya. So therefore he was reluctant to fight because fighting means he has to kill his grandfather and he has to kill his teacher. So Krishna has to inspire Arjuna from within to demand from Krishna how he is managing the whole universe. Because Krishna told Arjuna that whether you fight or not, all these people on the battlefield, they will not go back home. Every one of them is already dead. I have already killed them by my own arrangement. And whether you fight or you don't fight, nobody will return from the battlefield. They'll all be dead. So therefore, Arjuna wanted to see how Krishna is managing the universal affairs. And immediately, Krishna displayed his universal form. And Arjuna could see that all the military men, all the warriors, they were rushing into Krishna's mouth, and Krishna was crushing them. And then Krishna says, I am time, the destroyer of the worlds. And so when Arjuna saw this huge, gigantic form, universal form, Vishwarup, he became frightened. He was shaking. And he requested Krishna to please go back to his original 200 form. He was frightened. He could not bear it. So he said, my dear Lord, please, I'm frightened. I cannot bear to see this ghastly form of yours. Please return to your beautiful Somya Vapu form, your original form, holding the flute with two hands. I want to see that form. And so Krishna changed from the Vishwarupa or Virarupa, the universal form, to the Narayan form. And then from the Narayan form, he changed to his 200 form. So the 200 form of the Lord is the original form. That is the original form. The form that looks like the human form. As the Bible tells us, let us create man in our own image. So actually, this 200 form that we have is the original form of God. God created man in his own image. So God has two hands, he has two legs, he has a body like ours, exactly like ours. But there is a difference. There is a big gulf of difference between our body and his body. His body is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His body is Sat, is eternal, is Chit, is full of knowledge, and is Ananda, full of bliss. That is the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is eternally existing, is full of knowledge, and is always blissful. On the contrary, the body of the living entity in the material world is not eternal, is temporary, is not full of knowledge, is full of ignorance, and is not blissful, is full of miseries. In one purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada writes that every living entity is faced with difficulties. Whether you are the richest person, whether you are the poorest person, whether you are the most educated person, whether you are black or white, green or yellow, every living entity is faced with some difficulty. It says, first and foremost, to enter into this world, you have to take shelter in the womb of a mother. And that experience is horrible. In the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Muni describes the misery of the living entity in the womb of his mother. The living entity is bitten by worms. The living entity is tossed here and tossed there. He is packed up in a very small womb, small place, space. He's capsized. He goes through a lot of trouble for 9 months. And so you see the child in the womb, he is in a prayerful mood because he's feeling so much inconvenience in the womb. He's praying to the Lord. And at that time, the child can communicate because his intelligence, his vision is not so gross. He is more on the subtle plane when you are in the womb. So he can communicate with the Lord. He can understand how he is suffering, how he is imprisoned in the mother's womb, and he wants to come out. So he's praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, free me from this situation. When I come out of this place, I will worship you. So the child is in a very prayerful mood in the womb. So Srila Prabhupada says every living entity has to go through the mother's womb. A very uncomfortable situation. Then the day of the birth, the child is forced through a very small hole. He almost dies in the process of being born because he's forced through a very small gate. If any of us were forced through a small window, you would not feel comfortable. Your head is squeezed through a small hole. Your body is squeezed through a small hole. You are coming out of some darkness. And to come out of that darkness is very, very painful. Then once you are born, sickness, disease will set in. No one can escape disease in this world. And then as we grow, we are confronted with so many problems from other living entities. Frustration, disappointment, so many things from other living entities. And finally, the pains of death comes in. Actually, old age comes. The pains of old age comes, followed by the pains of death. Jai Sri Radha Govinda ki jai. So, the living entity is subjected to these difficulties. Every living entity. So, how can we say that our bodies are full of knowledge and full of bliss? First of all, they are asat. Asat means they are not eternal, they are temporary. They are achit. They are not full of knowledge, they are full of ignorance. Agyanam. And then they are not blissful. So much pain, so much difficulty everybody has to go through in this body. And then eventually, one has to leave the body. When the time comes, one has to go. No one survives the material struggle. No one. There is no history where somebody has survived the struggle against material nature. Srila Prabhupada explains that when the living entity occupies a very important position in life, he becomes attached to that position and he doesn't want to leave that position. Especially politicians and rich people. When people attain to political positions, prime ministers, presidents, ministers, and directors of government establishments, they become attached to that position and they don't want to leave that position. They want to maintain that position till the end. The rich people want to remain rich till the end. But material nature will not allow. Material arrangements, material laws, material principles will not allow. Everyone has to succumb to the principles of death. And after death, one is not sure of what body he's going to get. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says that because they were trying to enjoy the body, they were trying to enjoy their senses, they were trying to exploit material nature, they committed so many sins. Sense enjoyment, sense gratification means sinful activities. And because they've committed so many sins in trying to enjoy the world, they accumulate so many reactions. And so in their next life, they are deprived of a higher birth. They take lower birth, lower species. So that is the difference between the living entity and the supreme personality of Godhead. The Lord remembers everything about his births. The Lord appears in his own original form, Atma Mayaya, which is not subject to change. The transcendental body of the Lord is never contaminated by material nature. His transcendental body never deteriorates. Although he appears to grow from childhood to youth, and from babyhood to childhood, childhood to youth. But when he gets to the Kaishorya age, Krishna does not go beyond that. Between 25 years, Krishna stops there. Actually, Krishna can appear as a beautiful youth. But because he wants to give the opportunity to some devotees, some intimate devotees, to treat him as their child, he comes in the form of a baby. Actually, when Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, he appeared in the Narayan form with 4 hands. He did not appear as a baby. No, he appeared in his original Narayan form with 4 hands and with all the weapons. But then his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, they requested the Lord to assume a form of a baby, and Krishna, obeying his parents, took that form. So his so-called growth from baby to childhood to youth is just to give opportunity to the different categories of devotees to relate with him. As a baby, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they relish Krishna's childhood pastimes. As a young boy, the cowhead boys and the gopis, they relish Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. As a youth, the Dwarakavarsis, the Vrishnis, and the Yadus, they enjoyed Krishna's as their king, Krishna's rulership in Dwaraka as their king. So different stages of Krishna's life is meant for giving pleasure to different devotees. His body or intelligence does not deteriorate, no change. His appearance and disappearance are different from all living entities. He performs wonderful and superhuman activities. The Lord is always the same absolute truth without a change. So the question comes that if the Lord is not changing, his form is not changing, then why does he have to take birth in this material world? Why does the Lord have to appear and disappear from this material world? So last week we were discussing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world for 2 reasons: internal reason and external reason. the Lord comes into this world for a number of reasons, but they are grouped under two: internal reasons and external reasons. Mahaprabhu came last Sunday, was his appearance day. He's the latest incarnation of Godhead. He appeared in West Bengal in the form of a devotee. Why was he appearing? Because he wanted to relish the mood of his topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani is serving Krishna in such a beautiful way. He's serving Krishna in such an ecstatic way that Krishna is feeling. How is this devotee feeling? What is he experiencing by serving me? I want to experience what he is experiencing by rendering service unto me. Therefore, the Lord appeared in a golden form in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And so, in order to experience that, then he has to engage in the external activity of propagating the holy names of Krishna. So the internal reason for the Lord's appearance is to relish the mood of Srimati Radharani. And the external reason for the Lord's appearance is to propagate the holy names of Krishna. But actually, the external reason nourishes the internal reason. By propagating the holy names of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced the mood of service. By propagating the holy names of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced Radha Bhav. By propagating the holy names of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually invoked the spiritual world on this planet. And so, the Lord appears in this world for the benefit of his devotee. Yada yada hi dharmasya. That's the next verse. As Prabhupada says. Why, a question may be raised, why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bharati bharata. Abhyutanam adharmasya tadarmanam srijami aham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend. And the next verse also says, Paritranayam sadunam vinasaya chaduskritam dharma samsta patanaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So we can say that wherever or whenever there's a decline in religious principles, the Lord appears in this world to reestablish religious principles. And then also, he appears to deliver the pious, that is the devotees, and also to annihilate or destroy the impious, that is the demons. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago, he also did the same thing. Because when Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, he gave an order. He says everyone should surrender unto him. Sarva dharma parityajya. He said everyone should surrender unto me. Krishna Sharanam. That is our business. Everyone's duty is to surrender unto God. That is our position. Everyone is eternally a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Haya Nitya Das. Everyone is eternally a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are all parts and parcels of Krishna, And what is our duty? To serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our position. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us how to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because 5,000 years ago, Krishna appeared and ordered everyone to surrender unto him. By surrendering to God, we can actually experience the joy and the bliss that we are looking for. We can only be happy in the association of God. That is the fact. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us how we can again surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the method he gave was the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That is the external reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. He came to re-establish religious principles. He came to propagate the holy name, the Yugadam, the religion of the age, which is the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. In Kali Yuga, people like to sing, dance, and feast. That is the characteristics of the people of Kali Yuga. They like to sing and dance. They like to enjoy. That is the characteristics of the people of Kali Yuga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us a system of religion, a process whereby we can sing, we can dance, and we can feast. That is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the reason why the Lord appears in this world millennium after millennium. He comes to reestablish religious principles and give the living entity an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. So, if there are any comments or questions, I think we have some 10 minutes to go. If anybody has any question, you're welcome. Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. In your explanation, the living entity passed through the womb of the mother for 9 good months. I also want to know whether Krishna also passed through the womb for that 9 months. I want to know.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your question. Well, in the Krishna book, it is described how Krishna was in the womb of Devaki, and the demigods, they all came to offer prayers to Krishna. Even the Vedas personified, the Shrutis, they all came and they were offering prayers to Krishna. So yes, Krishna has set the rule. And so when he comes, he attempts or he pretends to follow the rules. Krishna sets the rules how to enter this material world. You have to pass through the womb of a mother and you have to be born. So Krishna doesn't need to follow those rules. He doesn't need. But sometimes Krishna also seems to be following those rules. So why does Krishna do that? Just because he wants to give an opportunity to the devotees to serve him. Krishna does not need to stay in the mother's womb for 9 months. He doesn't even need to stay in the mother's womb for 1 second. He doesn't. But because some devotees have performed severe austerities, in order to beget the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their child. And they wanted the Lord to behave the same way a child would behave. So the Lord accepted to come as their child. So Krishna entered the mind of Vasudeva, and then Vasudeva transferred Krishna to his heart, and from his heart, Vasudeva transferred Krishna to the heart of Devaki. And from the heart of Devaki, Krishna enters the womb. Krishna's conception is not like the ordinary conception between man and a woman, whereby there is sexual intercourse and a discharge of semen and all that. That is mundane. Krishna's birth, Krishna's appearance was completely divine, completely transcendental. He first entered the mind of his father, Vasudeva, and then it descended into the heart, the seat of love. And from the heart, he was transferred into the heart of his mother, Devaki. And from the heart of Devaki, he went into the womb. That means Krishna is totally, completely free. He is not subject to the material laws that affects everybody. So, he is not affected by all these things. But still, just because Devaki and Vasudeva, they had performed thousands of years of austerities, meditating and praying that God, Krishna, should appear as a child, so the Lord accepted. But there are other instances when the Lord did not have to had to enter a womb of a devotee, like Lord Varahadev. Lord Varahadev, he appeared from the nostrils of Brahma. Brahma was busy reading his scriptures, and all of a sudden, he saw a small personality as small as a thumb. And as he's observing, and he appeared from his nose, very small like a thumb. And Lord Brahma was observing, and that small entity began to increase in size and became gigantic Varaha incarnation, Varaha avatar from the nostrils of Brahma. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, in the palace of Hiranyakashipu, Lord Narasimhadev appeared from the pillar in his full form, with thousands of hands, with weapons, ready to destroy Hiranyakashipu and his soldiers. So the Lord may choose to appear from the womb of his mother because a particular devotee, man and woman, they have prayed that Krishna should come as our child. So Krishna agrees and comes in that form. But he still remains the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not affected by material energy. He's not affected by material laws. He chooses which parents he wants. We don't choose our parents. We just find ourselves in some family. Whether we like their family, we don't like their family, we are thrown there. Whether it's a rich family or a poor family, we are thrown there. Whether it's a black family, white family, Indian family, African family, we are thrown there. You just find yourself in some house. You open your eyes and you are somewhere crying as a baby. We don't make a choice. But Krishna chooses. Krishna chooses who should be his father, who should be his mother, where should he be born, at what time he should be born, and what activities he's going to perform. Everything is already arranged. That is the difference between us and Krishna. So Krishna's appearance is completely different. Our appearance, we are subject to the laws of nature. We are subject to the laws of karma. We are subject to the reactions of our activities. Krishna is not subject to the laws of nature. He is not subject to the laws of karma. He has no reactions to suffer because he does not perform sinful activities. So Krishna's birth is completely different. That's why Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, Jarma karma chame dibhyam. That's the next verse to this. 8:49. Jarma karma chame dibhyam. Ivam yo veti tatwa taha. Teatwa deham purna jarma. Na itimam etisora juna. Says one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. Because Krishna's appearance is transcendental, is spiritual. If we try to understand how Krishna appears and how Krishna disappears and why Krishna performs certain activities, if we just try to understand this, that is our qualification to go back home, back to Godhead. If we just try to understand Krishna's appearance and disappearance and activities, his birth, his activities, we immediately qualify to enter the spiritual world. And so because of this, Krishna is coming. He's coming just to give us the opportunity to understand his appearance, his activities, and by so we can go back home, back to the spiritual world. So Krishna's appearance in this world is for our benefit. Otherwise, there's no need for Krishna to come here. But because we are all part and parcels, we are Krishna's children eternally. Even though we are running away from Krishna, Krishna is running after us. We don't want to serve Krishna anymore, and that's why we left the spiritual world. But Krishna still brings the spiritual world to the material world in order to engage us. That is the mercy of Krishna. Yes, Harinam Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, somebody has a phone.
Thank you, Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada is saying that in his lecture that a death is changing the body. Death is changing the body.
Yes.
And you can make a solution where you can able to go. Either you go to Brahmaloka, Vaikunta, or you stay here.
Yeah.
And right now also you are saying that in the scripture that when we understand the appearance and disappearance of Krishna and activities of Krishna, we can go back to Vaikunta where Krishna is.
Yes.
I want to know the process where one can perform so that he can reach Vaikunta.
Thank you. That's why we are here. That's why we are here. we are all here because we want to go back to the spiritual kingdom. That's why you are here. That's why I'm here. And that's why everybody's here. Everybody you see here today, we have one aim. Our aim is to go back to the spiritual world. That's our aim. And the process, Lord Chaitanya himself has given. Lord Chaitanya himself, he came. We said the Lord came for two reasons. One reason is external, one reason is internal. The internal reason is to relish the mood, the service mood of Srimati Radharani. Radharani is the topmost devotee of the Lord. He is enjoying Bhava, Mahabhava. The experience of Srimati Radharani cannot be described. She's always in trance. So Krishna is wondering, what is it in my service that this devotee, Srimati Radharani, is always in bhav? I must go take the form of a devotee and experience it. That is the internal reason why the Lord came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna himself came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to experience the bhava, the mood of Srimati Radharani. But in order to experience the mood of Srimati Radharani, he must perform some external activities that would go to nourish that internal mood. So therefore, he engaged in Harinam. He engaged in chanting the holy names of Krishna. He engaged in performing kirtans and giving the living entity the opportunity to also perform those activities. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, even though he is Krishna himself, he embarked on the chanting and dancing to the holy names of Krishna, and thereby induced the whole world to chant the holy names of Krishna and dance. And by doing so, the whole world can go back home, back to Godhead. Actually, Vasudev Datta, one great devotee of Lord Krishna or Lord Chaitanya, he told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, please, I want you to liberate every living entity in this world, because this material world is very troublesome. Everyone is going through trouble in this world. So I want you to liberate everybody. Let everybody go back home, back to Godhead. And the Lord Chaitanya said, what about their reactions? Because people have performed sinful activities and they have to suffer for it. What about their reactions? Vasudev Datta said, I will carry the reactions on my head. Put all their reactions, all the living entities in this world, put their reactions on my head and let them go back home, back to Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya said, Tatastu, it is your desire to liberate everyone from this world. That is the heart of a devotee. The devotee is always thinking how he can liberate everybody from this world. Prahlad Maharaj was also thinking like that. Jai, Sister Radha Govinda Ki Jai. And Lord Jesus, today they are celebrating Easter. Lord Jesus, he's a Vaishnav. He's a devotee of the Lord. So he is thinking how he can deliver the living entities from this world. Jesus is not the first person to think about delivering the world. There are people who actually did. Prahlad Maharaj, he prayed to Lord Narasimhadev. He said, deliver everybody from this world and let me go to hell and suffer for their reactions. Prahlad Maharaj. Same thing, Vasudev Datta. He also told the Lord, take everybody back home, back to Godhead. Put all their sins on my head. Let me suffer for it. But let everybody go back home, back to Godhead. That is the mood of a Vaishnav. So Jesus is also in that mood. He hung himself, he stretched his arms on the cross, and they nailed him to the cross. Not because he did not like to live, but because he had great compassion from within his heart. And he felt, let me die for the sins of the people so that they can get a chance to render devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. So the process is already here. How to go back home, back to Godhead. Many devotees have sacrificed their lives to give out this process. Srila Prabhupada, in a very advanced age, has to travel to America with no money, with no relatives, no friends, nothing. An old man, 79-year-old man, or 69-year-old man, just to establish this Hare Krishna movement for you and for me. Just to establish this movement so that every living entity in any part of the world can hear the holy names and take the holy names. And by taking the holy names, every living entity can go back home, back to Godhead. So the process for going back to Godhead is already here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought, and his devotees, they have maintained the process until now. And so now, We have the holy name in our hands. All that we need to do is to chant the holy names very seriously and without offenses. That is all that we need to do. We should chant the holy names with very serious attitude. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says chanting the holy name is like a cry of a child. When we are chanting, we should be in a crying mood. When a child is lost from his parents, the only way he can get the parents is to cry. He begins to cry, and immediately he would draw sympathy. When he's crying, people will start wondering, where are the parents of this boy or this girl? Why is he crying like this? And immediately they start looking for the parents. They will take the child and they start looking for the parents, and they will find the parents. But if the child is not crying, nobody shows sympathy. So similarly, the chanting of the holy name is a cry to Srimati Radharani. It's a cry to the Divine Mother. My dear Mother, I am lost in this material energy. Please pick me up and engage me in your service. So it's a cry. When we chant the holy name in a prayerful mood, in a crying mood, without offenses, the doors of liberation are open. Moksha dwaram apavritam. The doors of liberation are open. If we chant the holy names without offenses, in a mood of crying for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately Srimati Radharani will hear our cry, and she will come and pull us out of this material world. So the process is here. The means to get out is here. It is left to us how seriously we apply this process. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please, there's an online question here.
Yes, online question.
Yes, Maharaj. This is from Bhakta Amega. He said, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your wonderful lectures. Since you are talking about time, I know that the rising of the sun and the setting brings day and night here in the material world. I would like to know what represents time in the spiritual world, and do they have day and night also? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In the spiritual world, it says time is conspicuous by his absence. Time is conspicuous by its absence. In other words, there is no material time in the spiritual world. But there is transcendental time. There is. Because Krishna has a time he eats. Krishna has a time he goes out with the cowhead boys. Krishna has a time he meets with the cowhead men and the ladies and everyone. So there is transcendental time. But it's not like our material time, whereby there is a rising sun and there's a setting sun and there is a watch we are looking at. It's now 3:45. No. There's nothing like that. But there is time. There is a schedule for Krishna's activities. So Krishna's activities in the spiritual world is the time. Whatever Krishna wants, that is the time. And everybody is simply acting according to Krishna's plan and Krishna's desire. And that is the time. Krishna's desire is time in the spiritual world. In the material world, material time has to be there to regulate everybody, because we are not acting according to Krishna's desire. We are acting according to our desire. And therefore, Krishna has put time there to check everybody. Whether you like or not, time will influence you. Whether you like or not, you will be born. Whether you like or not, you will grow old. Whether you like or not, you will die. That is Krishna's time in the material world. In the spiritual world, time is conspicuously absent. But there is time. Krishna has his morning program. Krishna has his noontime program. Krishna has his evening program. But there is no sun. There is no time. But automatically, when Krishna wants to dance with his devotees at a particular time, that would manifest. If Krishna wants a morning whereby he can interact with his devotees, morning will come. A Krishna wants a night where he wants to dance with his gopis, night will come. Whatever Krishna wants, it happens. That is the spiritual world. Everything there is based on Krishna's desire, whatever Krishna wants. In the material world, is different. Yes, Panchatattva Prabhu. What is your question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Just as a curious question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, this our process of childbirth, we have to go through, man and woman have to meet, pregnancy, long last after 9 months, and all these kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it a kind of punishment for the living entities or what? Because looking at the process of Lord Brahma coming out, and then that of Lord Vishnu himself coming out, hearing four hands, and then this gentleman, Adam, his process of creation is totally different from ours.
Yeah.
They could have continued like that, molding and then bringing the people down like that. But then after 1 or 2, 3 times, they decided that, okay, we have stopped. The rest of you should have sex. You should continue like that. So is it a kind of punishment for us here?
Thank you. Actually, it is mentioned in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma was doing everything by himself. He was manifesting some living entities from his arms, some living entities from his face, some living entities from his chest, some living entities from his thighs, some living entities from his buttocks. He manifested the yakshas and the rakshasas from his buttocks, and they wanted to eat him up. Lord Brahma had that potency of creating living entities. But it is said that the creation was going at a very slow pace. So Brahma was thinking, how am I going to increase the population of this universe? This entire universe has to be populated. And just me alone, it won't work. And even, you see, when I create some of the children, they want to eat me. So what is going to happen? So Lord Brahma was inspired from within the heart by Antarayami, the super soul, that the best way to procreate is to introduce sex life. So therefore, Brahma, at that point, decided to create the first male and the first female, the first couple, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. What we have in the Bible as Adam and Eve actually is Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. Swayambhuva Manu is the first male that was created by Brahma, and Shatarupa is the first female that were created by Brahma, and they came as a couple. It is not that the man was created and the man went to sleep and God went and stole a rib from his chest and created a woman. I see the materials for creation is finished. It's finished. So God has to go and steal a rib from a sleeping man in order to create a woman. This is not, we are minimizing the position of God. Lord Brahma, he created Shatarupa and Swayambhuva Manu simultaneously. He's not even the supreme God. Lord Brahma is the engineer of this universe. He created them simultaneously. From his right arm, from his right side of his body, Shatarupa and his wife, they simultaneously appeared. And Lord Brahma empowered them and said, you are born to increase the population of the universe by sex. So, yes, sex life is actually a punishment. It's a punishment because many things happen in the name of sex. But that is the highest pleasure in this material world. So despite the difficulty, despite the problems, despite the challenges, people are ready to do anything for it because it's the highest pleasure. So, because of the pleasure involved, bringing forth children, maintaining them, and all that is troublesome. But the pleasure principle forces a man or a woman to engage in sex life in order to enjoy. And the consequences are very serious. So it's a punishment. And that is why the sages and they advise that one should try to minimize this sexual activity. Procreation is important. We have to bring forth children. Otherwise, who is there to preach? Who is there to continue with our process? But one has to minimize his sexual involvement if you want to make progress on the path of spiritual life. That is a fact. So the acharyas, they recommend that when a child is born from the age of 5 to the age of 20 or 25, he stays with a spiritual master and is trained to be celibate. Brahmacharya. After 25 years, if he can continue with his celibacy, all the best. If he cannot, he takes permission from the spiritual master and he gets married and bring forth children. At the age of 50 and above, again, he retires from sex life. So, in the Varnashrama Dharma, there are 4 ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Out of the 4 ashrams, only 1 ashram, sex is allowed. In the Brahmacharya ashram, sex is disallowed. In the Vanaprastha ashram, sex is disallowed. In the Sannyas ashram, sex is disallowed. Only in the Grihastha ashram, that sex is allowed. And even then, one should regulate it. If you want to get out of this material world and go back home back to Godhead, you must decrease your sexual appetite. The more sexual appetite we have, the less spiritual appetite that will develop. That is a fact. Because the love for God is called adiras. The love for Krishna is called adiras. And that adiras is converted into lust, which is the sex energy. So the more we are attached to sex life, the more we are detached from that adiras. That is a fact. So therefore, all the scriptures, they are recommending that one must regulate his sex life. One must regulate his activities if you really want to make advancement on the path of bhakti. It is important. So sex life is a punishment. The living entity wants to enjoy like Krishna, so he's given a chance to behave like Krishna, because Krishna is the father of all the living entities. The living entity also wants to become a father. And Krishna said, okay, go ahead, but you pay the price. Hare Krishna. Any other comment? Dr. Jake, our time is going.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Maybe the last question.
My question is that if my this life I commit more sinful, and my next life I came like animal, so can I become a human form again?
Yes. If you misbehave in this life and you are given the body of an animal, again, you have to go through the evolutionary cycle. You see, there is evolution from lower species to higher species. From the aquatics, you become trees and plants, and from trees and plants, you become worms and insects. From worms and insects, you become birds. From birds, you become animals. From animals, you become primates. From primates, you become human beings. From human beings, you become demigods. From demigods, you go back home again. You go back into a cycle based on your activities. So when you misbehave, you perform sinful activities, and you are given a lower birth, like a dog, for example, then again you have to go through the different stages. You become African dog, Indian dog, German dog. And then finally, you go to the next stage, maybe a goat. You become an African goat, an Indian goat, a German goat, and then you become a sheep. Then from there you become a cow, an African goat, African cow, an Indian cow, and then finally you become a human being. You go through all the different stages, so there's no need. Don't go there. It's a waste of time. Thank you. Don't go there. Yes, Mataji, last question. Another hand is there, Mother Dharma.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you very much. I want to ask this question. You said the living entity wanted to enjoy like Krishna. So Krishna paved way for us to come and enjoy like him. I want to know whether because of that Krishna created the material world.
Yes. The material world is a prison house. It's called Durga Dam. Durga means very difficult. Durga Dam is a prison house. Just like in every country, there is a prison house. Just a few miles away from here in Sawam is there. It's a prison house, medium cells. It was actually meant for politicians. Kwame Nkrumah built it for politicians, for his opponents. But now it's used for general prison. So every country, there is a prison house because the government knows that some people are going to deviate from the law and there must be a place for them. So similarly, the material energy is always there. It's not that it is not there, sometimes it's there. The material energy is always there, but it is in a subtle form. It is the third energy of the Lord. And what is it? Bahiranga Shakti. Bahiranga Shakti is the external energy. It's always there, but it's in a subtle form. So sometimes it is manifest and sometimes it is unmanifest. So when the living entity is desiring to imitate Krishna, then Krishna glances at the material energy. The glance of Krishna gives rise to the manifestation of that subtle energy. Krishna's glance is so powerful that immediately Mahatattva is activated and the material creation begins. Our glance has no power. Krishna's glance has so much power. Just by glancing at Mahatattva, material creation comes about. And that is for the living entity. We are sent here to try to imitate Krishna. So everyone is trying to become the Adipurusha, the original enjoyer. That is our spirit. Everyone wants to be the enjoyer. So we have to gradually give up this tendency of imitating God, imitating to be the enjoyer. And that is why Krishna spoke that verse in Bhagavad Gita, the peace formula, 529. 529, Krishna is giving us a peace formula. Bhoktaram Jagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Suhridam sarvabhutanam gyantwamam shantim richatim. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So Bhoktaram means the enjoyer. Bhokta means enjoy. So Bhoktaram means the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the supreme proprietor. Krishna is the owner of the energies. We are not. But we want to imitate Krishna. So Krishna said, all right, go to the material world and you can imitate me as much as you want. But you will fail. And we are failing. Yes, Mother Dharma, maybe last question. Time is going. I'm delaying the arti. Hare Krishna Mataji.
My question is about
Bhakti. Very good.
In the Damodara Staka,
Yeah.
it is written there that there are 9 processes of Bhakti. But I used to know of Bhakti Yoga. I don't know the rest. So which are the 9 other processes?
Thank you. We will end the class with the 9 processes of Bhakti. The 9 processes of Bhakti are listed in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You know them, only you don't realize it. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Sakyam, Vandanam, Armanivedanam. There are 9. Shravanam, hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, praying, making friends with the Lord. What else? Worship the lotus feet of the Lord and surrendering everything to the Lord. There are 9. We are already doing them without knowing. We are hearing. What we are all doing right now is Shravanam. We are hearing about the Lord. And then as we hear, we also repeat to others. That is Kirtanam. Or when we chant our japa, it is called Kirtanam. And then when we think about the Lord, sometimes we are not before the deities, but we are thinking about the deities, or we are thinking about the spiritual master, or we are thinking about Srila Prabhupada, or we are thinking about what we have heard. That is called Smaranam. And then we also want to render some service, Sevanam. We want to make friends with the Lord by making friends with the devotees. We want to surrender everything to Krishna. We want to surrender our whole life to Krishna. So all these are the different processes, and we are engaged in them. Of course, it is mentioned that even just by executing one of them, one can attain perfection. And there are examples of different devotees who executed one of these processes, and they went back home, back to Godhead. Shukadeva Goswami, he chanted the glories of the Lord, Kirtanam. He chanted Srimad Bhagavatam. And Parikshit Maharaj, he heard Shravanam. He heard Srimad Bhagavatam. And as a result, they went back home, back to Godhead. So just by employing one of these processes very seriously, one can go back home, back to Godhead. Of course, one can also execute all the 9 processes. And in fact, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is engaging everyone in the 9 processes of bhakti. Bhakti is the form of yoga that includes the 9 processes. So we are already performing the 9 processes without knowing. Thank you very much. I think we'll end the class here because time is going. It's already 4 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.